And welcome to this live stream of the Dental Guys, this special back-to-back live stream. We are excited to bring you this tonight. I'm Wes, the Dental Guy.
And I'm John, the Dental Guy. And yeah, that's right. We're bringing you the Wall Street Journal, I think is New York Times, all the news that's fit to print.
Right.
We feel like we're in that league right now in the dental world. We're all the news that's fit to talk about. We have pretty much, I think, handled it and had people on to talk about it. And
we've been hearing a lot from you guys, and I want to say thank you, right, for the feedback that we've received and all those things. I want you to keep doing that because, one, that helps us to keep doing what we're doing. We've always said that we need to hear from you, and the goal here is to spread the information that we have at hand, the best that we can do to bring you the people and the info and to break it down, simplify it, and really give you some things you need to think about. Right, John?
Oh, yeah. I think that's what, we've tried to stay relevant is I get the good word here, because things are changing so often. And today is no exception. We'll be talking about that all night. Just when you think what you're going to be doing tomorrow or next week, just wait because it could change. So with that in mind, we want to bring Justin Goodbread and Chris Mahan back with us on the show. They have joined us several times over the last weeks as things have changed and as things have come back to kind of the unknown to the known and back to the unknown. They've done an awesome job of kind of helping us plan our way. So welcome, guys. Thanks for being back on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah. And this last week, we're going to try to not talk too much about today because today is in Tennessee was a momentous occasion, right? And we'll talk about that more with our next guest, but we want to kind of stick to the business, but we will say that just for those of you who don't know what's going on in Tennessee, just maybe the 10-second or maybe 20-second version of this, the governor let us go back to work to do elective procedures today. And Tennessee OSHA sent out an email a few hours ago, well into the day that we're supposed to be able to do elective procedures, saying that we needed to postpone elective procedures is the bottom line with a bunch of other stuff in there. So essentially in the middle of our day of being back from the governor saying it's cool, we get the shutdown order from Tennessee OSHA. So all that for kind of another show, but this is what everyone's living in right now, right? If you're a dentist or a dental hygienist, you may not be living this exact reality right now, but you're living a version of it. You're in your state, you're either not sure when you're starting or you have started with a lot of guidelines and clarifications that's still needed, or you're dealing with PPE issues or whatever. There's a lot of uncertainty going on right now. And at least we know that I feel like I've never understood the business world as well as I wanted to. I feel like now I actually understand the business world more than I do
I have more confidence. I have more confidence, John, that the loan documents that I'll sign tonight and turn in tomorrow for my PPP to go into my bank account, I have more confidence in that document and what's going to happen tomorrow when my bank account goes from whatever to whatever, than I do with really, hey, what am I going to do tomorrow?
Am I going to be doing dentistry tomorrow or not? Yeah, I feel like exactly right. We know more about what we're doing with our PPP loans, which is not much. We don't know much, but that's why we've got these guys on. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about where we're at with, there's lots of things that have been happening with PPP. And I want to maybe give a quick recap. So if you have either received your PPP funding or are about to, because there's a lot of people that are in that second round of funding that are just getting those. I signed my documents, just today. We're getting that. So what's the story with kind of how we keep track of those expenses? We talked a little bit about that last show. I don't want to go through the whole thing again because people go back and watch it. But just briefly, maybe Justin, why don't you recap that for us on what should people be doing if that money's about to hit their account? And then we'll go to Chris and talk about that employee retention credit one more time and kind of maybe weighing that out a little bit. But Justin, tell us, if you're getting that funding, what are some of the things you need to be looking at right now?
Sure. So banks are handling things differently at this point. It's my advice and a best practice that we covered last time to make sure that the loan goes into its own special bank account and try not to mix it with your general operating account. Now, not every bank is doing that, but it's a good practice. That way you can track exactly how you're spending the dollars. That's number one. Number two, if you're not working, then hold tight on the money because we're not exactly sure how we're going to maximize forgiveness in that position. So that's number two. Number three, if there are parts around the country where dentists are working at this particular point, and if that's you, you want to keep copious records. Work with your advisors, work with your accountant to make sure that you're tracking exactly where every dollar is going in payroll. We talked about all the various types of payroll forgivable type of expenses, utilities, interest, things of that nature. You want to set up a good tracking metrics. We've set up some spreadsheets and some tracking spreadsheets on financiallysimple.com/tracker. If you don't have one or your bank hasn't provided one, you go download one for free from there. But you want to start tracking where you're spending your dollars for those of you who are working at this particular point. And then as we go through and we start our businesses, hopefully again in Tennessee at some point, then you want to meet with your advisors, whoever they may be, frequently. We're meeting with our clients weekly, and I know Chris's team is as well, trying to help them maximize the forgiveness and make sure that we're trying to navigate the ever-changing SBA regulations. And quite candidly, in the last 2 weeks, not ever-changing. They haven't given us the guidance that we're expecting them to give. On the other hand, the AICPA is providing guidance, and we're going to see if the SBA will adopt some of those guidances that we hope they will.
Gotcha. And so, Chris, talk about the ongoing discussion that we've had at this point as you're looking at PPP, and you've got some discussion, as Justin started to bring up, about what might change with PPP. There's a lot of proposals going on right now, but we have this tax credit that we know is out there as well. And as some of this uncertainty in some of these states is happening right now with opening dates and all of that, what do you think about PPP versus the retention credit? Obviously, a lot of people, if we've got the money, that's already, that horse is out of the barn. But, what do we do? How would you weigh that out to somebody who's asking, well, should I still even think about PPP funding or at this point, or should we be looking at that tax credit? And who should be?
To speak to those points, I start with the tax credit versus the PPP. The PPP was built, and it's still a beautiful thing, but it's there specifically to support small businesses. So you don't have to open up hyphenated schedules and hyphenated staffing, and you can start off right out of the gate and bring back your full staff at pretty much full benefits is the premise behind it. It's not unemployment. You see a lot of times on the news stations and the certain podcasts and things that it's there just to to get the employees on the payroll while they're not working. That is not what it's there for. It's there to help small businesses get kickstarted and get this economy back up where it was previously as fast as possible. And that's what it's really there to subsidize, in my opinion. They also came across the CARES Act with the employee retention credit. And that's something we talked about on a prior show. But basically what that is for the first $10,000, up to $10,000 of payroll per employee, you get a refundable $5,000 tax credit. So, if you got 10 employees, you could have $50,000 in refundable tax credits for payroll taxes. And the Internal Revenue Service released, I believe, 2 days ago, the new Form 941, which, in my world, I live and do 941s for the past 20-something years. It's a lot longer now. They've got all the credits and the add backs. So your payroll tax preparation may go up a little bit. So it's complex for the tax side of it, but it's definitely an alternative for those who did not get PPP. The last I heard, and Justin can speak to this, I think about maybe 60% of the latest round of PPP funds has been utilized. So I think there's still plenty of opportunity and time to get into that. I think they're looking at next Tuesday, Wednesday, to forecasting it to be depleted. So I still think the initial play is on the PPP. Justin and I were talking offline earlier about, hey man, now though some of this, TOSHA in Tennessee, who's following OSHA, which is federal. So those TOSHA guidelines are federal guidelines. So we'll see how that works in Texas and in Montana and in Nebraska, because OSHA and CDC are not state by state. And when Tennessee, in this example, came through, that begs the question, what do we do now? Because we just got, John Rogers went this morning and filled out his documents and getting funded tomorrow, and he's on the 8-week clock, right?
Yep.
And so what is the smart play? Well, Justin, I think somebody had asked if we can give it back. I think you had until 5 o'clock today to give it back. You know how all the other businesses that went out there, the Ruth's Chris and the Steak Shack or whatever. So that being said, we lost that window for now. I would still tell everybody, like Justin mentioned, I like to reference the movie Braveheart. You remember, if any, it probably shows my age, okay? But in Braveheart, you got Mel Gibson with all of his soldiers behind him, and man, they're just chomping at the bit. Should I go? Should I go? Should I do it? Should I do it? Should I put my employees on payroll even though they're not working? And you got to hold your sword up and say, hold, 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 and then go. And right now, we're still in the hold phase. So I think that's something to, everybody be patient. There's going to be changes. The AICPA, as Justin mentioned, as you guys mentioned, have made specific recommendations that make entirely too much sense for it to go through quickly, right? Because their recommendations are that your window should start. So your window should start the first while you're open. So if you can't open, your window shouldn't start yet. And they've also mentioned the first day of your next payroll period after funding. So that means if you got funded today and you're in a biweekly payroll cycle, your funding window might not happen until a week from Monday based on how your pay periods run. If you're semi-monthly, that's the first and 15th. Biweekly is every 2 weeks. It makes a ton of sense. And then I was actually pleased. I think it's a little late to the game, but I'm also pleased to see what yesterday the ADA released, that they've got formal letters of recommendations to Congress and the SBA recommending that they're supporting the fact that dentists specifically should not have to have that window start until they can be open. They're also requesting specifically that 25% portion, because not everybody can utilize it. The PPP is 75% for payroll, 25% for other, which is rent, utilities, mortgage interest, right? Now, that being said, the ADA is recommending in their letter that you can use some of those funds for PPE, because what? I mean, you guys haven't been saving money. Y'all been spending money, the whole time, just stocking up on masks and gowns and gloves. And guess what? The cost of business has got a lot more expensive, right? I mean, and again, and rightfully so. So those are things that the ADA, the AICPA are doing. And I still say, if you got your PPP, you got it 2 weeks ago, hold it. Hold it until you're open.
So just to go back and summarize, because I think there's a lot there in terms of what could happen. So you've said that there's a possibility of what I heard was kind of 3 things with this and maybe more. You've got a possibility that they could extend the weeks that we're able to claim the forgiveness. Like you could go from 8 weeks to 12 weeks or something more. Like a longer period of time is one thing. Second thing is the possibility they could actually change the start date, so they could let you say, hey, we're back to work, so this is the start of our 8 weeks. And then the third thing is they could change the percentages that you would have to pay of certain things, and maybe even allow things like PPE. I mean, those are all really big, beautiful things. Right. And the question is, I mean, I know you guys have been following, both of you, very closely, kind of the sentiment on Capitol Hill. Justin, you've brought this up a few times, that it's not just about reading. You guys have both been reading the documents we have, but so much of this is about kind of like knowing people and talking to people that have the ear of some of these lawmakers. Justin, what are you hearing about the actual, what's the true feeling there about, will some of these things actually get a chance to pass, do you think?
That's a great question. Here's what I hear from the higher up bankers and from national based banks that I've had the opportunity to sit on the phone calls with. The SBA is its own unique animal. And whether or not they're going to adhere or adopt some of these guidelines by the AICPA is yet to be determined. There are several people who believe the SBA is going to remain silent and not move very quickly on some of these things, if not give any guidance whatsoever, with the idea to hang it on the banks for forgiveness. There's that particular position that we have to see yet. It's going to, because of some of the things we talked about last show, which came about with the tax, with, now having to deal with taxation, like we talked about last episode, and the forgiveness, and now some of the additional information that's coming out with the maybe some of the mechanisms might not be forgiven. There's a sentiment that the SBA is trying to recapture some 30 to 40% of the $3 trillion that's either going to go back to the SBA as unforgiven documents or unforgiven loans, or that the IRS, because of their guidance that they gave last Thursday, mind you, that they're trying to capture some of this printed dollars and get back into their coffer. So, guys, there's a lot of guidance out there. There's a lot of wishful thinking. AICPA is putting some common sense things out there, in my opinion. I can't figure out a Braveheart analogy to make that, like Chris can, but
that was
good. I can't bring that up. I can't even bring a Top Gun analogy up in this episode.
I know.
One of our
listeners
but
we're getting real close.
One of our listeners actually said, in the comments, said freedom.
That's awesome.
So,
as we're getting our guts yanked out over here in Tennessee.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. So no,
I feel like I got a gut punch today. I mean, seriously.
Back to the guidance, though. If you read the heart of the bill, right, that's what we have to follow, John. That's what you were talking about. The idea being that we're trying to get America back to work. We're trying to get the economy started, right? Get this thing back out of this mud. We're seeing Wall Street turn, which is a little bit of guidance. We've seen that. I mean, the NASDAQ is positive for the year. Think about that. I mean, it was at some point today. I didn't see the final close. But think about that. So we're seeing the guidance on Wall Street showing that as a leading indicator that we may be there. The heart of the bill is to get America back to work. And the common sense stuff that the ICPA and several other, a lot of law firms are providing out. We'll see if the SBA adopts it. They do have carte blanche adjustments that they can make. They do have that per the bill.
Now, there has been some talk, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that there is more funding on the way. Is that the case? What are your thoughts on that, Chris? What have you heard?
Well, a couple things. I think, one of the things we haven't spoke on over the past, 3 or 4 shows is EIDL. EIDL's coming back in. I got a call from a client today. Said, I got an email that says you've been approved for your EIDL loan on a 30-year AM at 3.75, and it has a button that says verify and direct where you want it funded. So that's good. That's good news that those EIDL funds have continually been. I guess they were working in the background. We were supposed to get those grants in 3 days, and it took 3 weeks, and thought it was bankrupt. But people are starting to get emails now about that kind of money, so that's an option. And then, the latest rumors on what's going on Capitol Hill. I mean, I'm not on Fox News like Justin. I don't talk to senators or, people in the cabinet. I'm not connected as much as Goodbread is over there. But from what I can ascertain is that, one of the things that the administration wanted from day one, they have really, Mnuchin, that they are really big on this payroll tax holiday. They're looking at they want to pay. It's not going to pass the White House's desk any dollars moving forward unless there's a payroll tax holiday until the end of the year. That's good news for small business, right?
That would be huge.
It's probably not going to make it through the Senate unless there's liability protection for all the small businesses, because we are in, we're in the most litigious society on the planet here in the United States, and it's fixing to be steroids. I mean, attorneys are out there; they're getting ready for the commercials. Did your dentist make you go back to work for the TOSHA? Great, here we go. Right. So they're going to have a lot of protections in there for small business. And, one of the things I like that Olivia Wan said on your prior podcast, I know you have her coming up. She's a pro and an all-star. She said, do the very best you can do with the most information you have. And, and that's all we can do. So,
so the payroll tax holiday, though, when you're saying that potentially could be the rest of the calendar year. Is that the thought? Is that it could be something as good as that? But you feel like that would be have to be coupled with that liability legislation in order for that to make it happen. I know we're getting political, or we're getting into this, conjecture, but I mean, that could be a big get if the payroll tax holiday for small business.
Yeah, and this was not going to go through fast. As I think Justin mentioned in a prior show, the next round is going to take forever, and it's going to have pork all over it. Right? Everybody's going to get a piece of the pie on this one, so it's going to be a lot more negotiation. There's not as much as an acute need, I don't think, to get in there and just re-supplement it. I think they're looking at additional stimulus also. The other, the left side of the aisle is looking for additional stimulus checks for taxpayers. So they want to get another potential $1,200 per taxpayer, $500 per credit, or something of the like on that side of it. So I think there's going to be a lot of bartering, horse trading in regards to this latest round, and it'll probably happen maybe in 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, the left side of the aisle, they're trying to I was reading the Wall Street Journal today, and they were talking about trying to get $2,000 a month until the pandemic's over. Originally, a couple of weeks ago, one of the congresswomen said, hey, look, we want to do $2,000 a month until the economy reaches the pre-coronavirus. And the problem with that is on a stimulus package is that now when will people go back to work? And so, I hear the right and the left and all this wishful thinking. I have a hard time believing personally. Now, my crystal ball has worked a couple of times in this. I don't think I can hit a home run every time, but I have a hard time believing that we're going to see another stimulus check that has all this wishful thinking in there, this close to election, with this much hair on this pig after we've already printed $3 trillion of money. I just have a hard time with that. Now the pocketbooks are getting deeper, and we're dealing with long-term ramifications. As if $3 trillion wasn't a big deal. Now we're dealing with, okay, we're going to provide a $2,000 a month stimulus check until the economy reaches pre-coronavirus status. Guys, we were in the best economy in over 70 years. And so now you're going to start funding people until you get back to that point. I have a hard time seeing people going back to work. I mean, we had a client that the entire workforce surrounded them and said, hey, fire us because we can make more money on unemployment than we can working for you. So we're starting to get into some very socialistic type of processes here on both sides. So guys, I got to tell you, I hear it. Some of these things I hope don't happen for our economy's sake and long-term vision, but some of it I think they think it's getting too deep in the weeds of the pocketbook for some of these things to go through. Personal opinion. I wouldn't count on it. Personal opinion. Okay.
Interesting.
Well, I think this is going to be something where, for most of us in the dental world are going to be most affected by really the timing of this PPP. Because I think most people have taken that approach. There are a few people that I've talked to that are looking at that tax credit. But I think most people are low on cash or have had that concern. And so they're looking for whatever cash they can get. And the PPP has been a help for them. But if this timing change happens, I feel like that right there would be massive. And it sounds to me like from what you guys are saying, regardless of what these other maybe contentious issues are with stimulus or ongoing, Andrew Yang style, free money for everybody, then we're probably thinking that has the best chance to affect us positively at this point. If we can either set our 8-week period or we can have a longer period of time. And I guess even that you feel like, because we've been waiting on SBA guidance now for a long time. They were supposed to have that out. Wasn't it like a couple weeks ago? They were supposed to have had that already out for us. I guess it's hard to know when we will know, because people are trying to make a decision right now, whether to take money out of that PPP loan or whether to leave it in. Would your advice be to people, and I think you said this once, but I just want to make sure, to just continue to hold this money as long as possible in order to hope that, number one, you have the most time for the economy to recover, but also because you're hoping that maybe the guidance changes and we have longer to have a payback time?
Yeah, I'm over the position, hold it as long as possible.
Yeah, I think it's a calculated, it's a gamble, but I think that I'm gambling on the fact that this money was put in place to help small businesses get up and going when they can get up and going. Putting your employees on payroll when you're not generating revenues or actually really working was not the intent of this bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm hopeful that there will be guidance otherwise. And if not, then that amount of that loan will not be forgiven, and you can pay it back or hold a 1% note for 18 months, or roll it into your idle loan. Potentially, there's a lot of different options there. And again, back to what Justin was saying earlier, tracking. To err is human, and to forgive is divine, right? This whole thing that makes PPP outrun the ERC, the Employee Retention Credit, is the forgiveness part of it. And if you if you flush it for expenses while you're not generating cash flow or open for business, who cares? You didn't do anything except become basically an intermediary for unemployment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's all about the forgiveness, and it's back to the expense tracking from your gross payroll, not your net. So don't run their payroll out of those accounts, because that's going to be your net, and good luck explaining that to an underwriter. Justin can attest that most of the banks I'm talking to now, they've been working 18-hour days. You talk about banker hours. Bankers have been working like crazy at most of the regional and small banks. Okay, let me put it that way. Weekends, nights, Sundays, getting these PPP loans. Guess what they're not going to do? Forgiveness attestation. They're going to outsource big firms like KPMG and Deloitte and come in, and they're going to get incentivized on how many fraudulent ones they find. So they're going to have you button up, and you're going to have CPAs and engineers and MBAs coming through and making sure that you have your ducks in a row with your utility bills, with your executed lease documents, with your CAM charges and your property taxes included in there, with your payroll, with your health insurance and pension contributions, which differ. If you're a single member LLC or sole proprietor, you got hung out to dry. You don't get to put your pension contributions or health insurance in. If you're a general partnership or an S corp, congratulations, you won the free money for now. Right?
For now,
until they come across with additional guidance. So I just wanted to get that input, man. It's all about tracking and forgiveness.
Yeah. And guys, what I would like to see, if they were putting my wish list out, I hear the AICPA's wish list, but my wish list as a planner would be that Congress would modify what the IRS guidance was last week that came out on Thursday. I would love to see their legislative act in this next round of stimulus that says that we are going to be able to deduct the amount of money that we are using that's forgiven. So just kind of lay the backstory. We talked about this last week on the show. I said, guys, I'm really concerned. And I've been saying this for a month now. Chris, you and I have talked about this. I said, guys, I'm really concerned that whenever you have forgivable money, that you're not going to be able to deduct that expense. So let's say you have a $100,000 loan here that you're paying outright and it's completely forgiven. You've done everything right. You just added $100,000 to your adjusted gross income that's going to cause you, if you're in a 40% tax bracket, $40,000 more in taxes. That is not the spirit of the loan, which it was, the spirit of the program, which was meant to be.
Yes.
It was meant to help us business owners. What I would love to see,
there's a lot of people talking out against that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know what I would love to see in my wish list, and this is what I was talking with my representative, my contact on the Hill, is let's get a legislative change. Let's get a special amendment in this next round of funding that says we will be able to deduct those, so that we don't come back and end up with a huge, talking about one of the largest phantom income tax bills we've ever experienced as small business owners. That will wreck us just as soon as we start getting a little bit out of the water. We plummet ourselves right back into it. And now we put ourselves in a position where we're laying people off to fund the tax bill. I would personally like to see that. And I'm hoping, I've already put a petition to the CFP board. I put it to the Exit Planning Institute saying, guys, y'all got to spearhead this because it's going to crush our small business owners as it stands. That's what I would like to see, along with the guidance from the AICPA. But who knows?
Well,
who knows?
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
And echo on top of that, that means that this year and right now is the most important tax planning year of your business life cycle.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This is the year that you play your taxes the right way, but it doesn't take form filler outers or somebody saying, hey, this is how much you owe when you need somebody planning for you next week for the tax play at 12/31.
So, Chris, this last week, on that same thought, I know Wes has a very serious question here, probably something about Top Gun or running to West Virginia or something. But, Chris, this last week, we had a mutual client. I was amazed. We did some rock star tax planning last year involving some special retirement plans, some stuff that your firm did. They just got back a 3-figure refund check. So much so that in this conversation, whenever we were talking and you and I were emailing back and forth with this individual, we were able to say, hey, look, we could take that money, pay off the rest of your debt, take the difference of it, buy the market right now when it's super low. And we're like, man, your net worth is growing through this time period because of tax planning, but you're not going to run down to the sign twirler on the street or do a DIY type of tax planning with this crap we got to deal with this year. Now's the time to hire some pros on the planning side and on the tax prep side more than ever, guys.
Well, let me just tell you right now is that I think what we know from listening to Justin and Chris is that I see the differences between the two and how they complement one another. Justin, you see, is a forecaster, right? And if you look at financial planning, it is for his profession to plan and prepare. And Chris is kind of dual role in this because I think it's interesting because Chris has a master's in business administration and he has a practice management side where he's managing the intricacies. And I'm not ashamed to say that I've hired Chris to help me manage my practice and he's helping me do some things there. So I appreciate what he does and I appreciate what Justin does for me. Now, if you want to ask somebody about then, you go to the next level and you say, well, how can we prepare for our taxes? Well, Chris has a division right there, and here's why Justin and Chris complement one another, because this whole four conversation you see going on right here, this has been going on for the last 2 or 3 years with John, Wes, Justin, and Chris, and that's why we're bringing it to you. And this is what we talk about behind the scenes. And if you want to ask somebody about phantom income, ask me if you see me at a trade show, and I'll tell you a little bit about phantom income. I see Justin snickering and Chris snickering because they know what it can do to you because what it did to me. And so get ready, get prepared, prepare for the future by hiring people that do this. Listen, you will not have time. Listen, I'm just going to offer this piece of advice, then we're going to close the show because we got some breaking news, John. We got some breaking news, Chris. You're gonna want to tune in. Okay, I'm chomping at the bit for our 7 o'clock show. Okay, but listen, you are not going to want to do anything but cut teeth and schedule patients between now and the end of eternity. Right after what this just happened here, unless you want to quit and just own practices, John.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do some, you think you're going to do some day trading to get out of this? Is that your plan?
No.
Day trading, you think you're going to, do a little TurboTax and day trading. I think that's what we should name this show. TurboTax and day trading. That's my plan. That's how I'm getting out of this. Come on, guys. I mean, you don't know anything about this stuff. We all don't. Okay. And there's certain times in, like you guys are saying, where I think an individual investor, an individual can do a lot and can be, able to maybe navigate things. And in an up economy, that's a place where sometimes that can be appropriate. But this is the time you need to really strategize. All this question about what's going to end up being income, what's going to end up being taxable, how do you play this right so that all of this, people are concerned about cash right now. Do you want to, how do you, the question is really not, are we going to have access to cash? Because, you can always get cash, quote unquote, from the bank.
We're dentists.
But where are we going to be with that in a year? Because you can either be extending your debt service for another 10 years.
That's right.
Or you could be looking more at the long run. So we appreciate what you guys are bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. Obviously, everybody that's been listening to the show long through this whole thing, it's interesting to watch how our viewership is on this particular thing has gone up and up and up. And I think it's because you guys have consistently been able to navigate this properly and with proper vetting. So we appreciate that. And Wes, I'll let you kind of close this out.
Yeah, so listen to me. Yeah, listen to me, right? Listen to me now. All right, so here's what I want to say is that I'm so excited about 7 o'clock because we have some breaking news for you that we cannot wait to announce. And we're going to bring Olivia Wan on the show. So until then, have you liked and subscribed to The Dental Guys? The Dental Guys is a podcast primarily. We have an audio version of our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all those podcatchers out there will catch us. You can check us out over on YouTube, because we have every episode, I think, that we've ever done has been released on YouTube in video format since we started podcasting 5 years ago. But more importantly, I know you guys are looking for us to make statements, recommendations, those type of things, and we are going to be doing that. Also, John and I will be working on a schedule for releasing content over the next months or two. Don't think that we're going to disappear. We are planning behind the scenes on what to do going forward from here, because we know that our listeners want to hear. So we're excited that you joined us today. Thank you so much for those that were commenting that you were here. I appreciate those that are listening and that have been listening for a very long time. If you have questions for Justin or Chris, please feel free to reach out to them. They've left their credentials before on the show. You can check them out over at Justin over at financiallysimple.com and mayhanassociates.com. Reach out to them there. They'll be happy to help you with anything that, maybe anything that you can ask them to do. I don't know. So again, thanks again for watching. This has been another great episode. For Chris, for Justin, for John, I'm Wes, and we are the Dental Guys.